The story begins with the fact that one guy, Xiaokun, called out to God on the mountain. The village in which he grew up did not like him and therefore would be glad that he was finally taken away. Lai still responded to his dark smoke. It was him that Xiaokun had been waiting for since childhood at the last request of his parents. Li accepts him into his sect and the two of them fly away. Upon arrival, Li leaves him and says that this is where he will train. He is met by two guys and one of them, Subao, was jealous that Xiaokun got here so easily. He places a duel mark on the guy's hand and runs away. Everyone else receives him very hospitably and takes Xiaokun to choose weapons for him in the kitchen. He chose his bowler for a very long time, but in the end he chose one that no one ever liked. He hears strange noises at night and thinks Subao is coming for him, but it turned out that they were only his new friends who decided to have a bite to eat at night. Since he saw their crime, the boys forced Xiaokun to get drunk with them. In the morning, after another meditation, he began to feel his ki power and continued to train. After a couple of days, he was already able to raise the first level thanks to his bowler hat. It turned out that his turtle bowler was unusual. He could improve things that only magicians could do. Xiaokun decided to hide it more securely because it has a great power. With the next improvement of the sword, he feels that he has lost part of his life and began to curse the bowler hat and Subao. From one of his brothers, he heard about pills that prolong life by a year. Already at the market, he meets Subao, but two overseers were with him. Xiaokun ran into the forest and rebuffed him. The brothers had already found him, but Xiaokun was able to gain the upper hand. Subao believes that he was deceived because the guy already has the third level of Kai. From his brothers, Xiaokun hears about the upcoming training for adepts, for those who did not have their own teacher. The kitchen had never participated in such a thing, but Xiaokun was the first one to go there. The people at the trial are surprised to see Xiaokun and his two other brothers as the first participants from the kitchen. His plan was to wait for some time for the others to kill each other first, but in reality, everything turned out differently. The brothers shielded Xiaokun from the others, and he was able to reach the very top. The last thing, with the help of magic, was to jump over the stones floating in the air. The three of them were the first to reach the stairs in front of the gate, but Xiaokun had something in mind. He was ready to give up his place for the sake of 200 stones from each of the past, calling it the Supreme Path. The brilliance of the law, standing in front of the gate, wanted to be indignant, but he did not find a single violation. Therefore, Xiaokun held a real auction in front of the gate. Everyone offered an interesting amount, but the rich girl, who offered 10 times more than the rest, passed through the gate. One of the guys was outraged by such a sale of seats in a sacred place and threw Xiaokun through the gate by force. It turned out that while he was flying, his bowler hat was able to throw this guy into the gate while Xiaokun himself remained on the stairs. That girl left a huge amount, namely 2,000 stones. When the brothers began to rejoice, Li found out about their deed and sent them to different places. Xiaokun found himself in a new training location. Master Hu met him. He immediately gave him a beautiful uniform and said that their sect was studying the art of medicine. Xiaokun was glad to know that he would soon be able to create longevity pills himself. Upon arriving at the library, Hu said that in order to advance to the next level, he needed to learn 10 scrolls and pass an exam. In the forest, while looking for ingredients for his scroll, he stumbles upon the guy he accidentally threw into the gate. Xiaokun runs away and in the process accidentally enters someone else's test. There he was required to choose certain herbs in order to pass the test. He was greeted by a crowd upon exiting the tower, but Xiaokun decided to exit through another exit to avoid it. At the exit, he meets a girl, who bought a passage to the gate from him, and she tells him that today in this tower, Joseon Ki was supposed to pass the 10th stone in a row. This was the record of this sect, and therefore the crowd even fainted from anticipation of such an event. But instead of the sign of Joseon, a turtle symbol, left from Xiaokun, appears on the tower. The crowd began to resent that some reptile had blocked Joseon's vessel. She decided to repass the test, but leaving a very high result, the turtle still continued to glow on the tower. The hunt began for the owner of the turtle, because most of them were rooting for Joseon. Hu tells Xiaokun that she is rooting for the turtle because it has the strength to resist Joseon. A couple of months later, already 9 out of 10 stones were captured by a turtle and people gathered in front of the last 10th tower. As a reward, Xiaokun received some kind of golden box. Imperceptibly, he began to run away, but the crowd followed him. He hid, but at a dangerous moment, Lai dispersed the people and Xiaokun was safe. In the bushes, he decided to open the box. It contained a pill with which a person could live 100 years more than expected. But because of his carelessness, a chicken standing nearby swallowed the pill and flew away. A few months later, Xiaokun was already at the 4th level and people began to gradually get used to the turtle and even consider it a legend. He decides to steal the chickens, because the scroll technique he chose after use gives the owner a huge hunger. The next day, he meets Jiaosun on the street making a speech about how they can save the chickens. Xiaokan suggests splitting up into squads, and this helps us catching chickens a lot. That night, he pretends to be injured so that no one will notice his theft. Jiaosun believes him and gives him his amulet as a token of trust. Since then, chicken pens have been built under his leadership. On one of these evenings, Li visits him and realizes that this is his work because he knew the side effects of his scroll. Lai tortured him and promised to forgive him only if Xiaokan entered the test. His sword already had the 3rd level, and he himself continued to train. Xiaokan also sold bamboo to buy key pills. He was so busy preparing that he forgot about the start of the test. Lai bears in himself, and Xiaokan is already lying among the participants. Everyone is given a number, and the guy was lucky because he got the last number, 12. Each participant was very fast and strong, and therefore Xiaokan immediately applied his protective amulets. At the beginning of the battle, he first retreated in order to delay the moment of the battle longer. The opponent was the first to start the attack, but Xiaokan repelled his attack with his bowler hat, and now the opponent is already on the floor. The moment of the second round came, with the judges asked Xiaokan to leave her kitchen utensils because the opponents were not ready for such attacks. In this round, he was not lucky, and already in the first round there was his fight with Fiend. Xiaokan understood his weakness and was just playing for time. He understood that it was impossible to do this indefinitely, and therefore he simply rushed to the enemy at the feet with tears. Xiaokan asked to strike him first. Fane was at a loss, but gave him permission. Xiaokan had been standing in an attacking position for 4 hours, but after a while he accidentally dropped his sword. Fane considered this the first attack and therefore continued his attack. Xiaokan ran away until his defensive artifacts ran out. He sat on the floor, but with his strength he could control the sword. Fane's sword broke upon meeting his sword, and that meant a complete loss for him. Everyone around said that Xiaokan won only thanks to amulets and luck, not skills. The next fight for him was with Ling Fi, who also reached the final. Xiaokan had already bored her, and so she was furious, waiting for a fight. At the start of the fight, his technique didn't work on Ling Fi, and she plunged her sword into him. Xiaokan had already pretended to be dead, and this exhausted her opponent. The judges announced victory for Xiaokan, but the opponent came up with another rivalry. They started the battle based on which one of them had the best knowledge of herbs. Upon his victory, Ling Fi promised to hand over her sword and highly valuable cloud pills. Li created a special plan for them which needed to contain many other well-hidden sprouts. Ling Fi is the first to speak, naming 8 plants. After her story, Xiaokan confesses that he found 67 more species there. He told not only the name, but also their method of preparation. The judges unconditionally give him first place in the test. After that, Xiaokan was able to create pills and began to enjoy great popularity among the people. People came to him with scrolls so that he would solve their difficulty with herbs. Subao soon visits him. He apologizes for his behavior and thanks Xiaokan for removing his pride. Subao also warns him to be careful, because the brilliant of the law has not forgotten about his act and can be dangerous. Indeed, one day they came for him, but Shine only took him on a search mission. Hao and the brothers see him off as if seeing him for the last time. Du was also taken on a mission, and the 3 of them went on a flying ship. They arrived at the Mountains of Shooting Stars and continued on foot. Xiaokan shied away from everything in the forest, and not in vain, because they were surrounded by snakes with cannibal flowers. At one point, he felt something was wrong and everyone hid. It turned out to be a giant who almost discovered them, but still left. After that, they were attacked by dangerous 2-headed bats. They had to separate. They promised to meet at the beginning of the forest, but after a while everyone met except Xiaokan. All night they burned his signal fire, but only in the morning, when he was considered already dead, did he appear. All night he ran and fought back. Everyone was so worried, but he was able to stand up for himself and even took the fangs of bats. After only 3 days in the desert, they found a board with inscriptions, which changed their direction to the mountains. Xiaokan kept telling them to turn around and go home, but they had already come a long way. They arrived at an eerie village where they were escorted to the residence. Walking across the bridge, Xiaokan felt footsteps from behind, and this time it turned out to be a real danger. They were attacked by the traitor of their spirit clan, Lu Chen, who had already killed those who had come to Xiaokan. He sealed them in a special dome and continued his attacks. Hao hit a tree with her grenade, and it turned out that the main evil was some kind of spirit wrapped in red scarves. With his sword, Xiaokan vaporized her illusion and left a hole in the dome. They were able to find Hu's brother, but Brilliant betrayed Xiaokan and didn't save him, leaving him in the roots. He himself fell into the same trap. Brilliant threw a grenade at him, but with it he only flew out through the hole in the dome. As a result, Xiaokan Hu and her brother escaped, but he did not tell about the betrayal of the brilliant. Hao encourages everyone to move on, but Lo was already caught up with them. Jia Akan went home alone while the others held off the enemy.